whose jokes still account for a third of the website for the Oldie. And his latest joke on the Oldie website, he was always very generous to other comedians, and one of his favourite comedians was the late great Les Dawson. This was his favourite Les Dawson gag. My mother-in-law said, "One day I will dance on your grave." And I said, "I hope you do. I'm going to be buried at sea." We're only here thanks to our lovely sponsors, Kirker Holidays, who have lots of holidays you can read in their brochure, which you might have got before. We've got three particular ones to Lake Como in April, Mallorca in June, and then a new thing, the great John Hall course in Venice, been going for many years. They'll be doing in November next year. So on to our three brilliant speakers. For our first speaker, I hope you forgive a personal note. My dad is here, just next to me here. He described 75 years ago at school, he was sitting watching cricket, and he heard the most enchanting noise he'd ever heard. He described it as a strange, fluent burbling came to my ears. It was a commentary on the game that seemed to go on for hours, unstoppably, like the song of a bird in the mating season. I'm so delighted that they're here together, my dad and his old school friend, Henry Blofeld, wonderful cricketer, scored a century at Lords, stumped the future England captain Colin Cowdrey, and became the greatest Test match commentator of all time from 1972 to 2017. You've all heard him on Test Match Special. And his latest book is Sharing My Love of Cricket, Playing the Game and Spreading the Word. Ladies and gentlemen, Henry Blofeld.
I'd much rather have it done. My dear things, it's quite alarming, really, coming up first to the microphone, you know, second and third, you've got Pam Ayres and Wyman. It's a bit like going out to bat and taking guard first over, knowing that the two batsmen to follow are Joe Root and Harry Brook. Now, my dear things, cricket for a moment. I am utterly fed up with the way in which the T20 franchise world, which is dominating cricket at the moment, is suffocating Test cricket for so long, the gold standard of the game, pushing it to the margins, and who knows, one day maybe over the edge to extinction, although I do think that is a little bit away. When writing this book, that was really what inspired me. I thought it was a final salvo in me. I really think that things should be a little bit more as they were. And so I rather compared the old days when I began in the 50s and 60s. I began to tip my toe into the waters of cricket with what's going on today. I mean, in the old days, it was 2 innings cricket, 6 days a week, and there were time to do all sorts of other things, like drive an old Rolls Royce to India to watch Tony Gregg's tour in 1976-77, to go on a 3-week jolly inspired and sponsored by the dreadful Derek Robbins, to 6 Latin American countries where we play cricket, and to do things like that. I mean, it was a relaxed world. What have we got today? We've got a ghastly mix, I think it's a ghastly mix, T10, yes, that's coming here, quite soon. T20, the 100, the Big Bash, the Blast, we've got ODIs coming out of our ears, MLCs coming out of everywhere else, and also IPLs. I mean, the English season, to fit in the 4 competitions we have in England, starts on April Fool's Day and finishes only just before the clocks get back. It's really absolutely miserable. Now, I'm going to take you back a little bit, in this book, to The press box, when I joined it first of all in 1962, I'm going to tell you about three people. The Three Musketeers, I call them. They were all redoubtable men. Charlie Bray, who was Captain Essex, was red-faced, very amiable, with a, a considerable thirst. And he had the misfortune to Captain Essex of Leighton in 1932. Yorkshire were playing, Yorkshire won the toss and batted. Percy Holmes and Herbert Southgate were on 555 in the first wicket, a world record. And those things leave scars. The second was Brian Chapman, who was the most interesting one of the three. He worked for them for the, Charlie Ray worked for the Daily Herald, I didn't tell you that, I should have done. Brian Chapman worked for the Daily Mirror. He had been a considerable journalist. He was a northern editor of the Daily Express. Whenever you asked him what he would like to drink, he put on a schoolboyish grin and always replied, a large Dubonnet. I don't know what you say, a large gin and Dubonnet. That was it. I got it right in the end. He was the greatest possible fun, and he was a brilliant writer. The third one was the youngest and the most insecure of the three, Crawford White, who laboured on behalf of Lord Beaverbrook in the Daily Express. Insecure when it came to writing, composing was a problem, and was always accompanied by a tuneless hum, which reverberated agonizingly around his sector in the press box. Quite good looking in a sort of tallish, David Niven-ish sort of way. Now, the three of them had their first huddle of the day at about 3 o'clock. Bray had the ideas. White was the late man who went and got the quotes. And Brian Chapman sat and grinned amiably and sipped his gin and Dubonnet. And when he was furnished with the facts, which he was when Crawford White returned with the quotes, he wrote the other two off the page. They were three quite amusing individuals, I can assure you. The commentary box, it was a different place too. A world presided over by Brian Johnston, always eating chocolate cake, and John Arlott. And that was when John Arlott had the good fortune to have the first ever streaker at Lord's appear when he was on the air. A young, rotund merchant seaman, improbably named Michael Angelo. And Arlott, I was on the case. Yes, he said, not very shapely, and it's masculine. And it has, I think, seen the last of its cricket for the day. It was marvelous stuff. Another sort of complexity in those days was that cricket was, or rather these days, I should say, sorry, the complexity at the moment, cricket is being reintroduced to America. This year, they were joint hosts with the West Indies of the T20 World Cup. This has been the second season of the MLC, the Major League Cricket, which is America's own T20 franchise, inspired and largely financed by India. Now, America played serious cricket up to 1914, since when the eldest sister baseball took over. And their attitude to cricket since then has been jaundiced. And this was best summed up, I think, by Groucho Marx, who made a very unlikely visit to Lord's in 1954. And after watching almost 2 hours of the morning session, someone said to him, "How are you getting on?" And he looked up and said, "When does it start?" When I came to write about the remarkable test series, last year, the Ashes series, England and Australia, bearing in mind what had happened with Groucho, I thought it would be a good idea to brush down his spirit and take him along to Edgbaston to watch that remarkable first test, which England should have won, and Australia did. Groucho loved it, so much so he rebooked his suite at the Savoy and stayed on for the second test of Lord's. He loved that too, it was absolutely wonderful. Great. Now, the thing I've not talked about, of course, is money. In the old days, players were paid nothing at all, small change. Now, there is a lot more money in the game, which is a good thing, but when money takes over, greed is hot in pursuit. And that is what I think is happening now. Are we, in fact, in the future going to live in a world ruled, a cricket world ruled by greed? Or are we actually going to have a compromise whereby the two sides can live happily side by side? So that just occasionally, a little bit more than that, we can go and watch cricket, where there is still the all-important balance between bat and ball. Cricket is a game, an amazing game, because of this very balance between bat and ball. Neither has ever really taken complete control until now. And you are now getting runs scored in the IPL of 15 and over. It is all about 4 sixes and over. When bowlers, the best bowlers in the world, are nothing but cannon fodder. Is that really what we want to see, or is it not? I hope that the intrinsic values of the game will come back, but it's going to be a difficult job for the two sides to agree. The IPL have got to say, okay, our contracted players are now going to be free to play in Test cricket as and when needed. There's got to be this balance. Will it come? I'm afraid don't hold your breath. There was an amazing meeting on the 5th of July at Lord's between the leading protagonists of both groups, as it were, the Test group and the T20 franchise group. The T20 franchise holders were very, very intransigent. I don't know what's going to happen. I honestly wouldn't want to hold my breath. But that's what I've tried to write about in the last half of my book. In the first half, I've allowed myself to wander down nostalgia, memory lane, and things. And having said that, what fun it is that Ferdinand is here today. We spent 10 years together up the road at Sunningdale, and he was brilliant in the sixth form, and I looked after the things on the games on the cricket ground, I think. But it's wonderful that he's here today, and of course Harry is an inestimable father. So a Mount family occasion, a Sunningdale family occasion, and a great, above all, Oldie family occasion. Have I beaten the 10-minute signal? Am I allowed to finish? Oh, I'm allowed to finish. Well, there is a book. If you would like it, I will sign it. Very much.
Thank you so much, Henry. It's wonderful to hear that famous voice again. Our next speaker is our greatest living poet. She came to prominence in 1975 when she won Opportunity Knocks. She sold absolutely millions of copies. No living poet has sold more copies than our next wonderful speaker, Pam Ayres, talking about her new book, Doggedly, Onward, A Life in Poems. Ladies and gentlemen, Pam Ayres.
Thank you very much, everybody, and good afternoon. Oh, my goodness. Yes, I've been travelling to various book festivals and nice occasions like this one to talk about my new book, which is called Doggedly Onward, which describes really my attitude over the past 5 decades in that I have gone doggedly onwards, writing things that I love to write and having the pleasure of seeing people laugh. On the front of my book, there is a painting of me and my dog, Izzy. And this came about because the artist, Alex Chamberlain, is putting together an exhibition for the National Portrait Gallery of people who are connected with the services. And because I was in the Women's Royal Air Force for 4 years, he asked if he could paint my portrait. So if anybody says to you that Pam Ayres is no oil painting, you can say, I beg to differ. So I've only got 10 minutes. So I thought I would just tell you a little bit about things that have seemed important in my life. One of the things I've noticed, first of all, before I do that, about getting old, is that you don't have the stamina that you had before. You think you have, but you haven't. Last night, we went out to a party. We decided, we were dressed, and we were gone. It was only at the in a party mood, so bring it on. And though the bloke who played the keyboard started sagging, though the vocalist was ashen with fatigue, still on the floor the pair of us were dancing. Endurance, there was no one in our league. When we got up to do the locomotion, there was no one there could say we'd lost the knack. But this morning, as I tried to cross the landing, I feel as if I might have broken my back. Or it could be more a fracture of the pelvis. I can get about, I'm all right once I start. But I have to shuffle very, very slowly and keep my legs about 3 feet apart. While the addicts, they were clustered in the garden, lighting up their fags on their cigars. It was probably a clear and perfect evening, but the smoke was blocking out the moon and stars. They had a fella there just like Sinatra. I shouted, "Turn the volume up, let's hear him sing." But lately I am coming to regret that, as this morning I can't hear it. But when the bands had packed their gear into the transit, and the cats were on the wreckage of the feast, we staggered up our road on Sunday morning, and the sun was slowly rising in the east. I don't know what was in that last libation, but I laughed fit to burst at everything I saw. And I know I can't remember what was funny. I feel as if I might have broken jaw. So far, no encounters with my husband, since we came singing up the stairs at 4:30. I couldn't say I'm feeling optimistic, because there's groaning from behind the bathroom door. Last night I was soaring like an eagle, but like Icarus I flew too near the sun. So this morning I am just a broken woman, devastated that me dancing days are done. I never at any point set out to be a poet. I never saw myself as a poet. I still hardly see myself as a poet. I wanted to be a performer. I was desperate to get on stage and say something that I hoped would make people laugh. And there didn't seem to be anything. You know, there was Albert and the Lion and sort of monologues like that, but they didn't reflect my sense of humour or my timing or my vocabulary or anything like that. And it was ages before I put 2 and 2 together, because I was very good at English. I was hopeless at anything else, but I was good at English, and I longed to be a performer. And it wasn't really until I was about 19 years old, and I was in the Air Force in Singapore, that I put it together and wrote something that I hoped I could perform and which would make people laugh. And it came about because I had a boyfriend called Mike, and he had an irritating mannerism. In that, whatever you said to him, he would begin his reply by saying, "Well, this is the thing, you see." This is true, and it didn't matter what you said. You might say, "I have won £1,000,000 on the cricket bombs," or "I have contracted bubonic plague in both legs." But his reply would always begin by, "Well, this is the thing." And it drove me nuts. And you steeled yourself waiting for it to come. But anyway, it sort of gave me the idea for a poem that I thought I would try out with the audience. So I'm going to do this one for you, just because it was the first one I ever wrote to perform. And to my great joy and disbelief, people laughed. Well, I got up in the morning, like you would, and I cooked a bit of breakfast, like you would. But at the door I stopped, for a message had been dropped, and I picked it up and read it, like you would. "Oh, blimey," I said, like you would. "Have a read of this. This is good. It said, I live across the way and admire you every day, and my heart, it breaks without you. Well, it would. No, this is different. This is, well, it would. It said, I'd buy you furs and jewels if I could. And I'd go along with that. I think he should. It said, meet me in the park when it's good and dark, and so my wife won't see. I'll wear a hood. Oh, I blushed with shame and horror, like you would, that a man could ask me that, as if I would. So I wrote him back a letter saying, no, I think it better if I meet you in the Rose and Crown like we did last Thursday. That was my first effort, my first ever effort at a poem which I could perform. And I never looked at it as poetry. I looked at it as a form of comedy which happened to rhyme. And when I look through this book, there are all sorts of significant moments. One of which is when I had our first son. My husband and I have got two sons. And when I had our first little boy, I hadn't been that maternal really. I didn't feel like a particularly maternal person. My sister absolutely loved babies, and she'd never go past a pram. You know, she'd always come looking coo about the baby and how beautiful they were. And I didn't have those feelings. And I was worried, and I said to my mum when I knew I was having a baby, and she said, don't worry, because the love comes with it. And I think that's very sweet, and I think it's very true. And when my son was born, he was very beautiful. He was lame, so he filled out. You know, he wasn't a wrinkled little baby. And he had a little bit of hair, and I thought he was magnificent. And when I walked up and down the maternity ward and looked at other people's babies, a poem sprang to life. My baby's eyes are bluer than yours. He's got much more hair, and he's stronger. He's ever so bright, and he sleeps through the night. And of our two, I'd say mine is longer. I swear it's the truth. Mine is cut in the tooth. And he's obviously going to be tall. So it's hard to explain now I've looked at your Wayne. Why you bothered to have one at all? I think it's important when you're old not to look back. I think it's great to look forward and do new things. And in the last few years, since 2019, in 2019 a young music teacher approached me and asked if I would write the lyrics to a school's version of Peter Pan. And I loved it. You know, I didn't have to write about the things you would expect from Pam Ayres. I could write for a crocodile and a pirate and a mermaid and a fairy, and it was such fun. I loved it. And to see all those kids on the stage all singing my words, and it was magical after being a one-man band for so long. And recently, I was working on another project, and I've met George Fenton, the lovely composer behind all the David Attenborough programmes and countless films. And we hit it off. I liked his music and he likes my words. And we've written a show called Who Are You Calling Vermin? And this is about life in the countryside, but it's not a rosy view. You know, it's not the view you so often see of the babbling brook and the nodding bluebell and the piglet trotting along to tinkling music and all that. You know, it's a much more realistic view, which I think, because I've lived in the country all my life, I know about. Anyway, it's lovely. We've done one performance of it in Barnes, and that went a storm. And we're doing it again in the Basingstoke Anvil, and we're doing it in the Chester Story House. And I started to feel guilty because I'm claiming to be writing a musical, and yet apart from 8 chords on the guitar, I have no musical ability at all. And so I thought I would start to learn to play the piano. And I found a lovely music teacher who didn't mind that I was old, and she's been teaching me to play the piano, and I love it. And so I would like to I'd like to read you a little verse which I wrote on the subject. I'm learning to play the piano. I wish I had done so before. My husband, a classical lover, gets up and closes the door. This morning I murdered Tchaikovsky. Today it's a Beethoven score. Tomorrow I'll slaughter Stravinsky. And tickets are free on the door. Anyway, how long have I got left? One minute, oh my goodness. Okay, so, 1 minute only. I'd like to do, 1 minute, okay. I'd like to do this one. My husband's home was much more cultured than ours, and I don't say that in any apologetic way. But his mother was a very good hostess, and she used to put on beautiful dinner parties with flowers and lovely food. And whenever I tried to do something similar to emulate my mother-in-law, it always went a bit like this. It seemed like such a good idea, a flash of inspiration. To hold a dinner party, yes, off went the invitations. A proper dinner party too, traditional and smart, with all my oldest, dearest friends, the darlings of my heart. We'd clear the dining table of each dog-eared magazine. We'd dust around the skirting boards, the place would be pristine. We'd pick up all the clutter, drive the hoover around the floor, and see again our carpet after 18 months or more. Oh, I'd plan a lovely menu, 7 courses at the least. An absolute abundance, an ambrosia, a feast, with table linen matching and the candles burning bright. What a celebration, what a banquet, what a night. Yeah, well, that was then and this is now, and one thing's very clear. I can't imagine why I thought this was a good idea. Today's the day, tonight's the night, they'll be here in an hour. I'm absolutely shattered and I haven't had a shower. I haven't chilled the wine or put the nibbles in a bowl. I found my silver cutlery, it's all as black as coal. I haven't found the candles, we are making do with these. One's a stump and one is bent at 45 degrees. I haven't folded napkins in sophisticated shapes, or beautified a plate of cheese with celery and grapes. I haven't spent the morning on a floral centrepiece, and I'm skidding round the kitchen floor on half an inch of grease. My husband's disappeared. I don't know where he's hiding now. He hasn't helped at all. We've had a monumental round. I don't know where the day's gone, and I am filled with dread. Forget the conversation, I just want to be in bed. The guests I thought were witty, their attractiveness has palled. The men once so enticing, they're boring and they're bold. The women, all the shadows of their former vibrant selves, they're all in sizes 24, they used to be in 12. I stupidly asked George, I used to think him quite a card, not meaning to be spiteful, now he's just a tub of lard. He'll bring his lovely wife, she'll tell you all about her back. One's morbidly obese and one's a hypochondriac. I haven't found the coffee cups, we'll have to have the notes. The crumbles looking soggy and the kale was full of slugs. The meat is a disaster, undercooked and full of blood. The dogs pooed on the carpet. I haven't done the spuds. I thought I'd like to do this, but I don't know where to start. I thought I'd like to see them, but I've had a change of heart. They're old recycled stories and voracious appetites. Forget the darlings of my heart, they're all a bunch of shunts. I meant to be the grand hostess. Well, kiss goodbye to that. I haven't changed my frock, I smell attractively of fat. I've done my best, it's all gone west, I've ruined all the grub. Too late, here come the bastards now. Let's all go down the pub.
Thanks so much, Pam. Absolutely incredible. Wonderful. Our last of our 3 magnificent speakers is one of the greatest bass guitarists on earth. In 1962, he auditioned Stones. He played with them until 1993 and appeared on 19 albums. Since then, he's played with Bill Wyman's Rhythm Kings, and he played on the Rolling Stones' last album, 2023, Hackney Diamonds. And his 9th solo album, Drive My Car, came out in August. He's written 2 books in the last year. He's a distinguished historian and archaeologist, and he'll be talking about his latest book, Billy in the Wars, and he'll be talking with Oldie contributor Christopher Sanford, who's the author of 1964, the year the swinging 60s began. They'll be sitting down to my left, ladies and gentlemen, the great Bill Wyman.
Oh, we're going to sit here, are we? Okay, that's even better. How can you follow this? Pam, he was amazing. Amazing. You terrified me.
Now, it just so happens I start this by saying I found myself at Lord's Cricket Ground last night, sort of a net for this event. I walk up there, speaking to a small audience. I mention that only because on my left, on my right, I had Mr. Scaramanga. And I did think, where's Henry? When we need a name to complete the Bond trio of villains, we could have had an entire 7 theme table with only Henry Jones, and we had Fleming and Scaramanga, these sort of form core of the Bond names. But moving forward to today, Karen's introduction was, of course, peerless, Bill. But I could just add to some of Bill's many achievements in addition to that. He's, of course, a well-known photographer, a restaurateur, a composer, a diarist, a metal detector designer, tireless Crystal Palace supporter through thick and thin. Taker of a hat against an old England at the Oval, during which feat he kept a burning cigarette clout in his non-bowling hand throughout the entire performance, which is not often seen in the Oval or anywhere else. And incidentally, a man who played on such iconic songs, iconic bass riffs as 19 Nervous Breakdown, Painted Black, and many, many others. So a man of many parts, and a great pleasure to have you here today. Mainly as author of Billy in the Wars. Now on that book, you were born, I think it was revealed to the room, born in October of 1936, and early congratulations on your birthday this week. But the significance of that is that the Luftwaffe then would have very inconsiderately started their campaign of bombing the United Kingdom when you were about 4 years old.
Yes.
So what is your first, do you have a first childhood memory of that event, of seeing planes over there?
Well, that was the Battle of Britain. Battle of Britain on that day when the Germans first came over. And we were all in the streets in Lower Signal. I was 4, just coming up to 4. And I was with my mum and dad, all the local people in the streets cheering. And the whole sky was just full of German planes, just going across, really slow. Because they weren't bombing South London, so we were safe. They were going to bomb the docks and everywhere. And we could saw the Spitfires and Hurricanes going through the white lines, and cheering. And I vividly remember that. It's extraordinary.
So in addition to the obvious physical danger, not personally perhaps, but to the community
many
as a whole,
Yeah.
one of the other things, of course, that was so significant was the sense of austerity and making do and scraping and making ends meet. So can you tell us what your life need and what your daily life was like in that sense?
I don't know. We were always searching for food. We were hungry all the time. I mean, we were on rationing. We had tins of tinned, everything was tinned, tinned potatoes, tinned eggs, tinned, everything was tinned, that you couldn't have anything else. And you would go and scrape around, you'd go to the little, the place where they were taking, this is really difficult to follow your place. No. And just scraping and anything, which could be edible. I mean, my mother, we had no food. And my mother set me up to the bonfire on the top of the road to pick dandelion leaves to eat between bread. So, because that's all there was. It was fucking horrible. You just did the best you could, but everybody around was having the same problem. So it was nothing out of the ordinary. When you were growing up as a child, it was normal. Everything was normal, You never thought of anything different.
So that really leads to the next question. There's a sense of sense of community you don't really experience today in your neighborhood. People looking after each other. Was that the case?
Everyone was extraordinary. Every door was open. You could go in everybody's rooms, everyone's house. They shared food, they shared clothes. It was amazing. When everybody was ill, they made collections in the street. It's not there anymore. It's extraordinary. I'm sorry.
So I'm guessing that this might have had an effect of making you appreciate each day more and more that you're still alive today and enjoying life. Does it sharpen your sort of perception of that?
Sorry, I get so emotional.
Well, certainly, we're talking amongst ourselves, but it's part of stuff.
Very much.
Yeah.
That's terrible memories.
Yeah. But was there also, if you were 6, 7, 8 years old during the war, was there also ever a sense of, not adventure, but of sort of, spirit of you and your friends? Were you playing amongst the rubble, and was there a spirit of that?
We did do that. We played kiss chase.
Yeah.
Kiss chase, everybody loves. That's what we did. And I used to sit by an air raid, an air raid thing with the plane, with the guns to shoot against German planes. In a little park we had. And I used to sit there and talk to the air raid man. And I had a girlfriend. I was 5 then, or maybe 6. And she used to sit and comb my hair. I don't remember her name completely. Her name was Baker. And she used to spend all her time combing my hair. And she was my girlfriend when I was 6. And there was amazing little moments, which were few and far between, basically. But all of us were the same, so you just thought it was normal thing, normal life. When you got bombed out, you shared things, and you go to school and then quite play two little girls in this, go and bomb, the night before. We had to live in that all the time, but it was the community was amazing. It really was.
How's that? There was more of a sense of community there.
Oh, it was extraordinary. It was really extraordinary what people did in those days. It's not there anymore. I remember it distinctly, and I'm very proud of it. You know what people did in those days. I'm sure there's people here through the war. Can you ever raise of hands, people who remember the war? There you go. Yeah, there's a few people. And it's extraordinary because we were on rationing. The war ended in 1945. And we were still on rationing until 1953, which is unbelievable. 8 years after we were still on rationing. That's why we were all little. Every band from the 60s, all the bands, they're all faces. We were all little people. It's only later, they went to university and all that, they're all tall guys. So, yeah. I was never warm as a child, no. And my houses now are pretty much like ovens. I never want to be cold again, and I never want my children to ever be cold, because I wake up in the mornings and have to get out of bed into this icy cold room with lino, and step on this lino, and you'd have your socks hanging on the bedside, and they were like solid hard. This lady recognised. And you have to bang them on the side of the bed to the soft ones and put them on. And put on these freezing cold clothes, and then the windows had these ice stuff on, all decorated ice. Oh, it's extraordinary. Because you never had heating in any of the rooms. The only place that's heating is in the kitchen, the little stove. And so you'd all sit around there, going back to school, and then you went to school. You were always cold, always horrible. You're not on. You're not on.
How's that? Finally, when after these days you joined the army, you were inducted, did national service for the RAF for 3 years. Now, I'm just assuming that among the many attributes you would have learned in your days in the RAF would have been, for instance, qualities such as tidiness, punctuality, attention to detail, conformity, and of course strict deference to authority. Now, these are not necessarily qualities that perhaps we would associate with your workmates who you met in 1962, the Rolling Stones. So what was there ever any sort of a slight different value system that asserted itself during those days?
Well, they were all a bit younger, so they didn't have to do that, The great thing was I went into, luckily, not the army, I went to the RAF, which was a blessing. And I went to northern Germany. And while we were there, we had the British zone, we had the American zone, and the French zone. Down south, we never went to the French zone, of course. Why would you? Again, the French. But we associated with the Americans. And I was in a place called Oldenburg, which was very near Hamburg and Bremen. And the Americans came in Wilhelmshaven, and they came and we let them use Bremen as an arrival place. So the Americans kind of owned Bremen, just right near us. And so I used to go there and I saw the Kings band there and all this. And I bought my first 45 CDs, the little ones, the little records, because we had 78 records in those days. And I never knew what to play them on because we had these things with needles, and if I put a record on it, just tore it to bits. And but I was able to hear the beginnings of rock and roll because it was on American Forces Radio, whereas BFM was the British Forces Network Radio, which was pretty boring. And so we listened to the American stuff. And we heard the beginnings of rock and roll. Little Richard, Jerry, all those people, Elvis, Fats Domino, and so on. And that's when I went straight down into the town and I bought myself a Spanish guitar and tried to learn to play it, which was a nightmare. And then suddenly we heard about Doggedly making skiffle music. Do anybody remember skiffle music? Great, thank you. And because Lonnie really created the British movement in the 60s. Because we all had skiffle bands, the Beatles did, the Who did, the Stones did, Mission Beatles did in Dartford and so on. And so I formed a skiffle band on the I formed a skiffle band and I built myself a tea-chest bass out of one of these boxes with a broom handle and a bit of sides and cut my hands to the rhythm. I was trying to play the broom. And we made skiffle. And I did it with this guy who had a few hits later actually in Liverpool. And that was the beginnings of my kind of music career, I suppose. And then when I left, I formed a band in South London and for a couple of years. And then my drummer played with the beginnings of the Stones, Nick, Brian, and Keith. And then I joined, and then later Charlie Watts replaced my drummer, and that was the band, early 63. But everything is accidental, isn't it? I mean, nothing really. I mean, when my mum and dad met, see, this is it, a toss of a coin. My dad and his mate celebrated my dad's birthday in January, and they went to in Penge, to the music hall, and they sat up in the gods next to two young girls, very pretty girls, and in the interval they chatted to them, and they said, "Can we walk you home after the show?" And my dad said to him, "Mate, so which one do you fancy?" They said, "Well, they're both pretty, aren't they?" He says, "Well, let's toss for it." So they tossed for it. My dad thought tails and took my mother up. So if it had come down heads, I wouldn't be there. No, but it's those moments, and they happen throughout your life. Those moments which just go the other way. It's extraordinary.
And it just, I think
You lost it.
you can tell, thank you. I've never made it into a band. It just goes to conclude that power, proof of power of resilience and aging gracefully and creatively. But Bill's too modest eventually. He does have a new album out as well as many other accomplishments, driving my car. And I say without any affectations, marvelous piece of work. So still very much in the saddle, creative to this day, and a great pleasure to see you. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you so much, Christopher. Thank you so much, Bill, for a wonderful talk, and happy birthday on Thursday, Bill. And thanks so much to our wonderful speakers, Bill and Pam Ayres and Henry Blofeld. And Oldie outside the door, not where they were before lunch, just outside these doors here. And we also have a wonderful raffle prize of a magnum of champagne, kindly given by our sponsors, Coca Holidays. And the winner is Richard Lee. Is Richard still here? Thank you so much to our speakers and to all of you for coming to the Oldie lunch. Thanks so much.